Good morning.
Hi, Michael.
Hi, good afternoon. How are you, Avasha?
I'm okay. Are you?
It's bright and early here in the US.
Hmm. I know you just talking now.
It's a rainy day here, and we don't talk about our breasts, or as if some people are more comfortable saying their chest, and I was ignoring it. But after my wife urged me to go to the doctor, I finally went to the doctor and I told him that I had a lump on my left nipple. And this raised a red flag with my doctor because my doctor knew my family history. It's very important when you go to the doctor to share family history. You see, I had lost my older sister to metastatic breast cancer 2 years earlier. And for people who don't know what metastatic breast cancer is, it's when cancer leaves the primary site, in this case, the breast, and travels to other organs in the body through the lymph system. And for metastatic breast cancer, it's usually the brain, the bone, the liver, or the lung where the breast cancer will move to. And my sister, unfortunately, had metastatic breast cancer and she died within 1 year of her diagnosis of metastatic breast cancer. So when I told my doctor I had a lump under my nipple, he immediately sent me for further testing. And further testing would be a needle biopsy in my case. And I had the needle biopsy um, right from the nipple, and they couldn't get any cells out of there. So they sent me for a surgical biopsy. And it was during the surgical biopsy that the doctor took a sample and he said, Mike, come back to the office in 8 days. We'll have the results of your biopsy. So fast forward 8 days, I go to the doctor's office with my wife. And of course, I'm not thinking anything about cancer. I'm just thinking some sort of fatty tumor or something. And we're sitting in the doctor's office, and it was very pleasant with me. And he goes, let me go get your file. And he comes back into the office, and I can see his demeanor has changed. And he goes, Mr. Singer, I'm sorry to tell you, but you have breast cancer. And I'm like, I looked at my wife, I said, this doctor must have my sister's file. How could I have breast cancer? I'm a man. I was 50 years old. I had never heard of men getting breast cancer. The only experience I've had in my life so far at 50 was my sister who died from breast cancer. So I looked at the doctor. I said, how can I have breast cancer? I'm a man. He goes, no, Mr. Singer, I'm sorry to tell you, you have breast cancer. And the only thing that went through my mind at that point in time was I'm going to die, because that was my only experience, is breast cancer will kill you. My wife and I went home and we tried to wrap our head around it, how I could get breast cancer. Not ever hearing of men getting breast cancer was naive. And I come to find out later through research that over 2,600 men in the US will be diagnosed with some form of breast cancer. But unfortunately, out of those 2,600 men, at least 520 of those men will die due to the latter stages of their diagnosis. Why? Because most men don't talk about their breast cancer. They'll have, and most men are never taught about the early symptoms or warning signs of breast cancer. So I was caught totally off guard with this. And we went home and there was no information on it. You have to remember, this is 2010 when I was diagnosed, and there was very little information, if none, on the internet about male breast cancer. Today, you can go on the internet and find a lot of information from resources such as the American Cancer Society or Susan G. Komen or Cancer ABCs or the Male Breast Cancer Coalition.org like I belong to. But back then it was a different story. And I have to tell you, when the doctor told me I had breast cancer, I thought I was a freak because there was nobody out there like me that I could see. So I asked my wife, I said, don't tell anybody that I had breast cancer. I was embarrassed, stigmatized because I was raised that only women got breast cancer. That was my circle. I only knew women to get breast cancer. So when I was told that, I was a freak, I was embarrassed, I was stigmatized. People would come around my office when I worked and they had pink pom-poms, they for donations, everything was pink. There was nothing male about breast cancer. And today I'm hoping to spread a little blue into that sea of pink about male breast cancer. As you can see, the picture shows the pink and blue ribbon for the coalition because most breast cancer ribbons are pink. And in this case, we added blue. And as you can see, Brett Miller is the gentleman on the left. He's a co-founder of the coalition. I'll tell you a little bit more about him. So being home, I was embarrassed. I didn't want to tell anybody about my breast cancer. And again, I mentioned to my wife, don't tell anybody because I was embarrassed. And I lived like this for almost 2 years, not wanting to talk about it because I was embarrassed. And there was a TV show on in New York City called The Katie Couric Show. And it had a commercial that said, they're going to be talking about male breast cancer. And I was like, they're going to be talking about me. I have to watch. Sure enough, that afternoon, the show started. They had 3 people on the panel with the host, Brett Miller, who you see in the picture here, and another gentleman named Richard Roundtree. If any of you are old enough to have watched TV shows or movies from the US, Richard Roundtree was the actor. He was African American.
Hi,
and
Michael.
he was in.
Hi, Michael. Sorry, we don't see the picture. I don't know. Can you
All right,
magnify?
let me see if I get the picture back. Sorry.
Yeah, just magnify it a bit because you are sharing, but it's not visible.
All right, let's see if I
Sorry
can
for
get it.
that.
Sorry about that.
Sorry for that.
No. I'm going to see if I can get the picture. Is it not there yet?
Not really. It's not. It's not.
I think if you double click on the photo, it will show the screen.
All right, let me try that. Please move.
Sorry, just continue because due to the technology.
No, that's okay. How about now?
Yeah, it's now visible.
Yeah, it's now. It's there. It's there.
Yeah, it says you are sharing screen now. So do you see anything?
Yeah, now we can see. We can see the pictures.
Okay. So on the TV show was African-American gentleman. His name was Richard Roundtree. And for those of you who watch movies from the US, it was a show called Shaft. And he was like an action figure. He was very cool. And here I am watching TV, seeing these 2 gentlemen on TV. And I said, why am I so embarrassed? Why can't I talk about this? These guys are on national TV talking about male breast cancer. I'm not alone. These are people just like me. It was from that day forward that I had this epiphany that I have to spread or raise awareness about male breast cancer. I shouldn't be embarrassed about it. I shouldn't feel like a freak about it. I have to talk about it and share this information with. So I'm going to show you some photos and I hope they come through. So at that point, I contacted the Male Breast Cancer Coalition They were the ones who were on the TV show. Brett Miller was 24 years old when he was diagnosed with male breast cancer. Remember, I was 50 years old when I got diagnosed. So I contacted them, and they were having a conference, and they said, Mike, you got to come. And it was almost 2 years later before I met my first other male breast cancer brother. I call all the guys with breast cancer my brothers. And the feeling was amazing because here I thought I was alone. Now I meet 10 men who had breast cancer, and now we're sharing stories, we're exchanging information, and now I feel like I'm in a brotherhood. I no longer feel embarrassed. Now I can talk about it. So the first thing for me to do was to get involved with someone who could teach me about advocacy. And for those of you who are not familiar with advocacy, I joined something called Project Lead, and it was a training group, and they teach you from the smallest information about breast cancer to metastatic breast cancer, about treatments, the different diagnoses, the different stages of breast cancer. And in this picture, I'm showing, let me see if it's showing. Is Avasha, do you see there's a picture with a group of women and me in front of them?
Yeah, it's visible.
All right, so this is Project Lead, and they had this every year in California here in the US. And it was me and 50 women with breast cancer. And this was the training program to get me started in my advocacy work, because I didn't want any other men to be shocked or embarrassed or feel alone when they heard the diagnosis that they had breast cancer. As I mentioned earlier, over 2,600 men will be diagnosed just in the United States alone. So there are a lot of men out there. If you're a man on this conference call and you've been diagnosed with breast cancer, please don't feel embarrassed like I was. Don't feel like a freak. You're not alone. If anybody has breast tissue, which we all do, you have the possibility of being diagnosed with breast cancer. Here in the US, 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer, but for men, it's 1 in 833 who can be diagnosed with breast cancer. We're considered 1% of the breast cancer population, but it's terrible to be in that 1%. So from this training program, I went on to meet doctors and scientists who are all very passionate about finding a cure for breast cancer. And all of these women that you see on the screen that I'm sharing are all friends of mine now. We've formed a relationship. We contact each other. We share information. They call on me to talk about male breast cancer. I call on them when I need help. So we're just loading another picture here. There's a banner, and when we're at conferences, we have this banner. It's 6 foot tall, and it has pictures of different men, just a small snapshot of men in the coalition who've all been diagnosed with breast cancer. If you look up at the top photo, in the middle, it's me and my friend Raymond Rice. So these are all just men who've had mastectomies. So my surgery involved a mastectomy of my left breast, and that's where they removed the entire breast tissue, including the nipple. Some men get a single mastectomy. Some men get double mastectomies, so they remove both breasts. If you're a man, there are many ways that people can get breast cancer, men and women. Some people are genetically disposed, and they BRCA gene mutations is a gene called BRCA. It just stands for breast cancer 1, breast cancer 2, and it's a mutation. And what people don't understand is that the male or the female, if they have a family history, can pass this mutation on to their children, both their male children or their female children. And besides BRCA, there's also environmental issues. Here in the United States, we've had military bases where the water source was poisoned, and many men and women went on to develop breast cancer. The 9/11 memorial down in New York City, when it was the construction after the attack, over 15 men were diagnosed with breast cancer. These are small clusters, remember. When you're 1% of the breast cancer population and all of a sudden you have between 15 and 20 men, that's an environmental issue there causing the breast cancer mutations. And then people are just predisposed to have mutations in their body. So I'm going to show you some other photos. Let's see if I can give you a small. Let's see if this little video Ivasha runs.
Yeah, it's running, but we do not have audio. Michael,
Is it now?
we do not have audio for the video, but it's running.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I have the audio over here. I don't know why it's not. I was just trying to show you. This is my friend Raymond Rice. I had a single mastectomy, and in this photo, you can see he's had both breasts removed. He's a 2-time breast cancer survivor or thriver. I'm sorry about the audio portion. I'm not sure why that didn't play for you guys. But here's a photo of myself. This is after my breast cancer surgery. And I told you I had a mastectomy in my left breast. Most men will either a single mastectomy or double mastectomy. Now some men are having something called lumpectomy, to where they get the cancer completely out. And in my case, they removed the entire breast until they had what they call clear margins. And they check your sentinel and non-sentinel lymph node. In my case, I was very fortunate that the breast cancer didn't spread to my lymph nodes, and it was contained in just the breast tissue. And I did not have to have chemo or radiation, where many men and women continue to have chemo and radiation because the cancer has gotten in their lymph nodes. I was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer, something called ductal carcinoma in situ. And again, there are different types of breast cancer. I urge everybody to go to the AmericanCancerSociety.org and look up the different staging of breast cancer. They have great information on that website. They're a very big organization here in the United States, and they deal with all cancers, not just breast cancer. All cancers, could be colon cancer, blood cancer, but they spend a lot of money on breast cancer research. American Cancer Society had a research project, and they had worked on a drug called tamoxifen. It's a hormone blocker. In my case, my cancer was estrogen receptor positive. So I was on a drug for 8 years that would block the estrogen receptors to keep my cancer from coming back. I'm going to show you another picture. So through the advocacy, and I'm going to just do a quick PowerPoint presentation. Ivasha, I'm loading up a quick PowerPoint, and this is, let's see if I can get the, it's embarrassed to empowered because, again, I mentioned to you, I was very embarrassed at the beginning. And again, that was me after my surgery. I did not know at this point I was going to be an advocate. At this point, I was still very embarrassed about my male breast cancer and didn't want to talk about it. You could see there were 2 drain bottles hanging, stuck into the side of your chest wall and help drain out any blood or impurities in your system. And you monitor how much you take out, and after about 10 days, you go to the hospital and they will remove those drain bottles from your chest. Through my advocacy, I got involved with the local politicians in New York in my area, and I fought for what they call a proclamation, which called the 3rd week of October as Breast Cancer Awareness for Men. Remember, October predominantly here in the United States is for breast cancer awareness. And I got, along with the other 50 states and men working alongside of us, the 3rd week of October is Male Breast Cancer Awareness Week. And this is myself with my wife and the local politician who got the proclamation. It gives us a platform to talk about male breast cancer, takes the stigma away. We do newspaper articles and news interviews about male breast cancer. So we're bringing it mainstream. I also go out into the community and I do health fairs in all different areas. I go to nursing homes, I go to high schools, I go to hospitals, and I talk about male breast cancer. And this is pictures of me, my wife, who's been a big advocate also. What I'd like to tell you is you have to have a good support system when you go to the doctor. My wife was there when I was diagnosed with male breast cancer. And when I heard I had breast cancer, I couldn't hear anything else because all I thought was I was going to die. My wife was there to take notes and gain information so that she could tell me what the doctor said when we went home. And my wife has been an amazing advocate and works in the community also raising awareness. I've had numerous interviews at my house. News stations come to my house. I go on TV shows and radio shows, and this is all to raise awareness about male breast cancer because a lot of people don't know about it. And with the men being embarrassed, I try to be a voice for the men who are embarrassed to talk about male breast cancer. And I'm trying to be a voice for the men who are no longer with us because they died from metastatic breast cancer. And this is the young gentleman I mentioned, Brett Miller. He was 24 years old when he got diagnosed with male breast cancer. The shirts we wear say men have breasts too. They're pink and blue. I'm wearing mine right now. And this was something we went to where the American government has something called CDNRP. It's a research program for breast cancer that's the United States Army funds. And they do fantastic research. I've been involved with them several times. And like I said, you meet the most passionate doctors and scientists and advocates who are all fighting for the same thing, to find the cure for breast cancer. We saw this photo already from Project LEAD. I urge any of you to apply for this. If you do get accepted, they pay for your training and your travel to the United States. I've had men from other countries, as Australia, who accepted and participated. It's very, you go through essays, you have to write your essays as to why you need the training and what you're doing in your community to raise awareness of breast cancer. But it's a fantastic program. I urge everybody to apply when the COVID pandemic is over, and it's a fantastic course. This is another group I got involved with, Ford Motor Company. I don't know if Ford sells vehicles, cars in your country. but Ford has been very instrumental in raising money for breast cancer research. And myself and a couple of men are ambassadors for them. We go into the community along with these women, and we try to give more days to breast cancer survivors, thrivers, and their caregivers through gifts and scarves and bandanas. We do a lot for Ford Motor Company. They've been fantastic with me and other men. They get it and get breast cancer. My wife and I also lobby Congress in the United States here, the government, to get increased funding for metastatic breast cancer research. Again, that's the breast cancer that kills. If you have early stage, there are a lot of treatments out there to, help cure you or, treat you, but metastatic breast cancer is the killer. So we ask for increased funding from our government for the National Institute of Health to research metastatic breast cancer. And this is me and my wife and friends of mine in the halls of Congress lobbying to ask for money for research. Unfortunately, the top photo, the lady with the white t-shirt and the lady with the black hat are no longer with us. They both died from metastatic breast cancer. We go to Congress once a year, and there'll be over 100 breast cancer advocates, some who are dying for a cure. And, it's very emotional because from year to year, you don't see a lot of people who were there the year before because they had passed on from metastatic breast cancer. And I try to get involved in as many community events to raise awareness. In the lower left is the governor of New York. His name is Mario Cuomo Jr. And he rides a motorcycle. I ride a motorcycle. It gives me opportunity to get out in the community and raise awareness. Again, the American Cancer Society is very big here in the US to raise awareness and generate money for research. The American Cancer Society here in the United States has many opportunities to help people with breast cancer. They have Road to Recovery, which gets rides for cancer patients to go for treatment. They have Reach for Recovery, which is a 24-hour hotline for breast cancer patients to call and talk to somebody. And they have something called the Hope Lodge, which is free housing for a patient and their family if they have to travel to go for treatment to help save their lives. Some of the other groups are just fundraisers for metastatic breast cancer research, but I'll get out there and I'll talk to anybody about breast cancer. Some of the organizations, Breast Cancer Research Foundation, they're very big here in the US, internationally also. They raise funding for breast cancer research, and they have the largest study on male breast cancer here in the United States, really in the world. And in the lower left corner, if you guys can see that, is me, a magazine here in the United States called Gentleman's Quarterly. And it's a very fancy magazine with a lot of attractive men. And they did a full page ad with me in it. So now I tell my wife that she's actually sleeping with a male model. Well, no, I'm not a male model, but she's sleeping with a male model. And let's see if I can get that. I'm going to try to get to other photos here. Hold on. I hope this doesn't knock that screen. And here in the US, many athletes unfortunately get diagnosed with breast cancer. Let's see if this is a famous basketball player. The gentleman on the left, African-American, his name is Fatty Roland Taylor. And unfortunately, he died from metastatic breast cancer. Here in the US, basketball is a very popular sport. We also have football players. This was another famous football player, Ernie Green. He's still with us, but he has cancer. This is Tony Savage. I'm sorry for the small photo. He's an American football player in the National Football League. He's retired now. Him and his sister had breast cancer. And let's see if I can find Dombrowski. I don't see Paul Dombrowski. In this photo, hopefully this shows screen, I sent this to Ivash. These are organizations who offer scholarships for breast cancer advocates to attend and get training. Again, the one on the top is the National Breast Cancer Coalition. They have Project LEAD, and they're one of the biggest groups to train breast cancer advocates. I strongly urge people from anywhere in the world to apply for a scholarship here. And if you get that training, the ones below it will open up, and hopefully you can get accepted to attend those training courses also. And Ivasha has this, so she can share that with you. And again, like I told you, the governor of New York rides a motorcycle. I ride a motorcycle. I've ridden with him. And as you can see on the side, I advertise the pink and blue ribbon. This is to start conversations when people come up and ask me about the pink and blue ribbon. That this stands for male breast cancer, and it starts the conversation and helps me raise awareness about male breast cancer. I go to many meetings where we represent some of the men and ladies who have passed from metastatic breast cancer. Here in this photo, I'm wearing a picture of the first man I met who died of metastatic breast cancer. His name was Bill Becker. He was a father, a husband, a really, really nice guy. And I really didn't think men could die of metastatic breast cancer until I met Bill, and he had passed about a year after I met him. So it was a total shock. Let's see, I'm going to come back to, let me get back to me. Ivasha, does anybody have any questions yet?
Thank you, Mike, for sharing with us and for the presentation. From the chat box, I can tell that people are getting inspired by your story. And there are some questions that put questions there for you. So the first question I'd like to read from Juma. He says, hello, my you talked about two main issues that are called about cancer, fear and stigma. What kind of support did you have before you came out as a male breast cancer patient?
Again, the fear for me was I was going to die, because I didn't know at the time that early stage breast cancer is a treatable cancer that I won't die from. It wouldn't be until it became metastatic. So I had that fear in the back of my mind that I was going to die. And even for early stage breast cancer survivors like myself, there's a 30% chance of reoccurrence, meaning the cancer can come back. So that's always on the back of my mind, that there's a 30% chance cancer could come back. The stigma is something that we're still fighting. There are men who are still embarrassed because when they go for treatment here in the US, many times it's at something called a women's center, and it's pink. And the intake form, when you go there, asks me when I had my last period, or if I'm breastfeeding, or if I had a menstrual cycle. These things continue to drive the stigma and make men feel embarrassed or feel like a freak.
Thank you for that question. I think he's answered it quite well. And then there is Humphrey who says, thank you for the good work that you're doing. Stigma still remains an obstacle in cancer advocacy journey. As a survivor, how did you crack this? And what advice do you have for survivors and patients struggling with stigma?
Again, it's a daily battle to fight the stigma. The more men who come out and talk about it, I think the stigma will be reduced. When people see more and more men in ad campaigns from pharmaceutical companies, at hospitals, at clinics that show pictures of men with breast cancer, the stigma will be reduced. I had a great support system with my wife, and she supported me, made me feel a lot more comfortable talking about it. Um, it's still a stigma here in the US. We're trying to overcome it. As I mentioned, over 2,600 men are diagnosed every year just here in the US alone. So the men are out there, but a lot of them are still embarrassed to talk about it. For me, it was seeing that TV show I mentioned where they were on national TV talking about male breast cancer that I felt comfortable to come out and talk about it. So I think if more TV shows, more newspapers, more magazines, it would make the stigma less and less and less. But if you're a survivor or you are battling breast cancer, you need to talk about it. You need to bring it out to the media's attention if you have an opportunity to talk about it at local meetings. I do see some stories coming out from your country of men who have been able to tell their story. It's very moving, it's very emotional. I urge you to go to the Male Breast Cancer Coalition.org, all one word, and look at some of the stories of men who look just like you, who are just like me, who are dealing with this disease. Again, they didn't do anything wrong. The disease just happened. Sometimes it's hereditary, sometimes it's environmental, sometimes it just happens to you. It's a mutation. It's nothing that you did wrong. You can lead a better lifestyle to help reduce your chances through diet and exercise and routine medical visits. But the thing is, if you get it, you need to try to get it early and, get the medical attention to help, get the cancer out of your body. I hope that helped, Ivasha.
Thank you. Actually, you've just answered another question in the chat box where somebody was asking ideas on how to prevent male breast cancer. And you've talked of diet, exercise, routine checkup. So it's the person asks how to prevent male breast cancer in Africa. And I don't know about you, but I think that it's something that the same ideas you'd use for prevention of male breast cancer in your country are the same that we can use here in.
Again, I'm not a doctor and I'm not a scientist, so I don't want to give anybody medical advice. But if you go to websites like the American Cancer Society.org, and they have a lot of information on diet, exercise, and just routine medical exams. If you feel something, you have to say something. the Male Breast Cancer Coalition has these cards. I don't know if you can see it, but it's blue on one side, and it's how to do a self-breast exam for a man. And if you flip it over to the other side, it's in pink for a woman. It's downloadable off of our website, and right now it's in 20 different languages. So if there's an opportunity in your country to work with the coalition to have this self-breast exam card in your language, we would love to work with you to get it into your language if there's a different language other than English there. We have these cards in India, in Japan, in many other countries, in many other languages, in Spanish and English. And it talks about the early warning signs for men. A painless lump or thickening in your breast tissue, changes in your skin covering, such as dimpling or wrinkling, redness or scaling, changes to the nipple, such as redness or scaling, or a nipple that inverts or turns inward, or some sort of discharge from your nipple, like a liquid or blood. If you have any of those symptoms, you need to go to a doctor and talk to them about it. That could be a sign of male breast cancer. There are other diseases such as gynecomastia. It's not breast cancer, but some people think it is. So you need to go to a doctor and talk about your breast and bring it to their attention. To say, can you avoid it? You can make lifestyle changes, such as we mentioned with diet, exercise, no smoking, limit your alcohol intake, but very hard for me to give advice how to prevent breast cancer in men.
Yeah, actually, the ideas you are giving for prevention are actually quite similar to general cancer, like whichever cancer, it could be breast cancer, it could be throat cancer. I think the same ideas you're giving us are pretty much the same that I used to prevent other cancers. And then we have another question from Humphrey asks, what lessons can we learn from the Male Breast Cancer Coalition as a cancer advocacy organization with limited resources?
So again, the Male Breast Cancer Coalition website has a lot of resources for men and families. Sometimes there's good information that's passed along about research opportunities, about care and treatment. We help men sometimes in the US with acquiring the drugs necessary or how to help them, because the drugs are very expensive. So sometimes there's help in getting patients drugs at a reduced cost. But the ability to see hundreds of men just like you, just like me, and read their stories of how similar some of the stories are to yours and mine, and to talk about the early warning signs so that, God forbid, you see some of these symptoms, that you wouldn't be embarrassed to talk about it with your doctor or your significant other. Remember, if you have a family history of breast cancer, such as a mother or a father or an uncle or a sister, there might be a gene mutation in your family. This could be something that's hereditary. There is testing to see if you're genetic testing, but that would be for somebody who has a very strong family history of breast cancer, or maybe you were working in an environment that was very toxic, chemicals or radiation, and you're seeing different signs and symptoms. But the coalition website is a fantastic place to go for information, for resources, and to share your story. There's no charge. If you want to share your story of male breast cancer, you submit the story, you submit a photo, and they'll publish it, again, free of charge. There's no cost to join the malebreastcancercoalition.org. So I urge you, if you're a survivor or a thriver, or you have a male family member, to contact them, reach out to them, and see if they can help you. Again, we're separated by oceans, but we're all people, we're all humans, and there's help for everybody out there.
Thank you. So before I go to the next question, I'd just like to read some of the comments. We have the First Lady of Kisumu tells you, thank you, Michael. She is very courageous and empowering. Keep up the great work. And then Elizabeth says, this is great. Thank you for sharing. So I'd just like to add another question. Somebody asked, how do we strengthen the family support system in Africa, just like in the US?
Again, the first start would be to talk about it, to not be embarrassed about it, to let people in the family know about it. And if you're a man with breast cancer and you have children, all men with breast cancer should be genetically tested at the hospital or the clinic to see if they carry this BRCA gene mutation. And if they do, it would be very important as the children get older to, to talk to them about the family support system, to know that a member in your family has breast cancer and they should be aware of the early warning signs, and as they get older, to possibly either get tested or just to be aware of it if they do have a sign or symptom, to get checked out. But there's no magic story I could tell how to get support from the family. Again, some people would be embarrassed to talk about it. And what we're doing here today is fantastic, because everybody on this Zoom conference is helping reduce the stigma of men with breast cancer, that it does exist, that we shouldn't be embarrassed, that it's not their fault, and there is treatment out there. So you guys are doing, you men and women are doing a fantastic job in helping raise awareness and getting the information out there, in doing Zoom conferences like this, in putting out the information on Twitter like you do. The Male Breast Cancer Coalition has a web page on Facebook for men with breast cancer. It's a private support group, and you can contact them if you're a male and you want to join, and they'll let you in. And once a month, on the fourth Thursday of every month, there's a support group for call-in for men all over the world. We have men calling in from Great Britain, the United Kingdom, and we talk about issues that we have as men. Because unfortunately, many of the female support groups, and I don't know, Ivasha, if you have this issue, but they don't want men in their group because it's embarrassing for them to talk about female problems. And that just, when they say they don't want us as men, it gives a little more stigma, makes us feel a little bit more like a freak. But that's why the Male Breast Cancer Coalition has this support group for men to call in and talk about their problems, and the Facebook page where they can post information or ask questions, and other men will respond with their experiences.
Just like you said, with male breast cancer, men tend to feel left out because most of those support groups or those gatherings tend to bring up material that is useful to the women to survive cancer. For example, you just showed us the self-exam card. I've never seen a self-exam card for men. I've only seen the one for females. So I think maybe I'll find a way to download that for the group, and then so that they can have it and look at it. So I think most of the resources that we have in the cancer space when it comes to breast cancer, most of the resources tend to favor women more than the men. So when the men start, maybe they start keeping away from those support groups because they feel left out, that they feel like you said, freaks. And also, the women also will actually look at them and think, why do we have this man coming to the support group? And eventually the man might decide to just stay at home and not attend those meetings. So I think it's important that advocacy is bringing up such issues so that men can feel included. So I'd just like to take the last question from Lamek. He asked, he wants to know how cancer patients have survived mental health, because here in Africa we are just getting onto issues with mental health, and maybe we can get from you something that we can learn from you how male breast cancer survivors deal with mental health.
All right, so I'm missing the question from Lamake. He wants to know, can you repeat that just real quick, Lamake?
He wants to know how these cancer survivors deal with mental health and stigma, and any advice that you have for African countries on the same, dealing with mental health.
Okay, so mental health is very important for everyone, for men and women. And when you're dealing with a cancer that you feel alone, the best thing is to talk about it. I'm not sure if in your country they have mental health clinics where you can go talk about it. But again, if you feel stigmatized or you feel like a freak and you want to talk about it, the men, you're not alone out there. Reach out to the Male Breast Cancer Coalition, talk to other men who look like us and explain the problems. It'd be good for your mental health to talk to another man who's going through this. Here in the United States, we have a lot of mental health clinics where people could go in and get help and talk to a professional about it. There's no easy answer, Lamek, to tell you how to work with mental health, because it's very hard to recognize somebody with mental health issues, because in most cases they look normal. They don't look like there's a problem. Many cancer patients look normal. They don't look sick. You never know what personal issues somebody's going through just by looking at them. My advice is you're your own best advocate, men and women both. If you feel something or see something, you need to talk to a healthcare professional. If you don't like what they say, if you have an opportunity, go see another healthcare professional. Here in the United States, we do have a lot of opportunity of what they call second opinion or third opinion. If you don't like what the doctor says, to go to talk to another doctor. I don't know if you have that ability where you're located in Kisumu City, but being your own best advocate is the best advice I can give. And knowledge is power. Research online, Google it, get as much information you can. And when you go to a doctor or a healthcare professional, if you can bring someone with you who can take notes. Again, if you hear something, sometimes you go blank. When I heard, Mr. Singer, you have cancer, I went blank. All I thought about is, I'm going to die. And thankfully, my wife was there to take the information and, relay that information to me later on in the day of what the doctor said. Be your own best advocate.
Thank you for that, Michael. And one thing I would like for those on call to take from your story is the aspect of moving from embarrassment to empowerment. So, like you said, you were initially so embarrassed about your condition because it was something really new to you. But then again, you went ahead to the extent of influencing the government of New York to make the third week of October breast cancer awareness week. I think that's what I read from your story and from what you've said.
Yes.
So I would say advocacy does not really have to be something that is difficult. You can start as a personal advocate where you just talk to your fellow cancer thrivers. You do not have to go immediately to the community or to the policy makers. You just need to start from the ground as you build your confidence, as you build up. So I'd like to welcome Lamek to say something, and then maybe you can welcome a cancer thriver on the call. Lamek.
That would be great.
Thank you so much, Michael and Ivasha. Michael, thank you so much for that powerful, wonderful presentation. It's really embarrassing for the first time to come out and talk about yourself, your condition, and especially when it's touching about your status within the community. It's not something that anyone can accept easily. And a number of cancer patients are really going through a lot in terms of stigma, fear, and also embarrassment. I've learned a lot, and thank you so much, because one of the ways to overcome fear and stigma is by coming out and start engaging yourself into advocacy work. After you watching the TV, from that point you got involved into advocacy work, and you have done very, very great and credible job. And thank you so much. There were questions that were being typed that Ivasha was reading. Now I just want to take almost around 10 minutes because we are winding up. In case anyone would want to engage Michael one-on-one, please, you can unmute and then you can continue with any question that you want to engage him one-on-one, please.
And by the way, everybody here today, there's a huge turnout. You are all starting in breast cancer advocacy. Everyone here has the ability to help others. If you're a man and you see other men on here, reach out to them, share your experience, and start your advocacy. So if anybody has a question, I'd be more than happy to try to answer.
Yeah, I'm seeing Dr. Juma, welcome. Please continue with your question, please.
Thank you very much, Michael. It's really a question that has been asked. Sometime in August, I had a call from somebody from Burundi. I don't know whether he got my contact, but I met him through Zoom app for counseling. And after a week, he died. And the issue was precisely about stigma, which in Africa is very different. The man feared just like you feared, but in Africa, he took a different approach, which was towards traditional cure. The breast cancer, with all the stigma and the fear, in Africa, it's looked at it differently because people cannot relate to it very easily. They look for other means, as if it is bewitchment. They go for traditional healings, unfortunately, until they die. My question would be, you with your coalition, as a psychologist, the only hope we have for mental health is organizations like Kisumu Cancer Support Group. They are in touch with communities. And in Africa, it's not just stigma, it's not just fear, it's also issues of maleness and femaleness, the cultural barrier, which is very different from Europe and America. Is it possible for your coalition to directly engage with groups like Cancer Support, Kisumu Cancer Support Group, in their community outreach? I know you have the pamphlet and you have all these trainings, but the issues in Africa are very different from Europe and America.
Thank you for that question, Doctor. As Lameki and Ivasha and I spoke the other day, this is a fantastic starting point to make the connection with me, to make the connection with the Male Breast Cancer Coalition. This is the start, hopefully, of a combined effort between the two organizations to get the information out there, to help reduce the stigma, that we can get some information to you. We do have a conference, Doctor, every year where just the men come. It's a Male Breast Cancer Coalition conference. We have it in different locations in the United States, and we'll get 20 to 30 men who attend who have breast cancer, and we bring in doctors and scientists and psychologists to come and speak to the men. Again, we're very far apart as far as geography, but with the Zoom ability, it could be where Kisumu City Center dials in and joins in some of these meetings and conferences to get the information out there, to broadcast to other men. These conferences are sometimes 2 to 3 days long, and there's a huge exchange of information. In addition to that, there's a conference in the United States called the San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium. It's the largest breast cancer conference in the world, and doctors and scientists and advocates come from all over the world for this 1 week long conference. And there's an exchange of information. We meet doctors, we meet scientists, and they try to bring the information back. And the Male Breast Cancer Coalition has a booth there. And we ask the doctors and the scientists to go back and to talk about male breast cancer, to make it mainstream so it's not such a stigmatizing disease. And again, culturally, you said there's a lot of different healing that people go on. They don't go for the conventional surgery or drugs, and that's unfortunate. But this is a start to help open the dialogue between our two groups. What Lamek and Ivasha and the rest of you who belong to the Kisumu City Center are doing is fantastic. I wish there was a group like you when I first got diagnosed talking about male breast cancer. And hopefully everybody here today, if we had 20 people or 25 people on today who go out and tell another 25 people about male breast cancer and how men shouldn't be embarrassed and men should talk about it. And it doesn't just affect women. Those 25 will tell another 25. And this is how we grow the community, to raise awareness and to be involved in programs like this. Hopefully Avasha can download the self-breast exam card. In India, we have a doctor who travels, and in India, there are many small countries, and they download this card. They have it in, India has so many languages. I can't even count how many languages, and they've transposed this card into all the languages. So when they go to the small village in that country, they hand these cards out, and it has the men on one side, the women on the other. And it's easy to exchange that information, but what you're saying, doctor, is true everywhere. I think there's still a stigma attached, and it's going to take time to break down those barriers, but this is a fantastic start.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael, and thank you so much, Dr. Is there any other person with another burning question before we wind up?
So I'm just realizing, I'm not sure if Tom is on the call. Tom Ochieng is a cancer thriver also, a male breast cancer thriver. And I was hoping he would say something, but I'm not sure he's on the call now. So I'm just going to read he had put in the chat box. He says that your story is quite similar to his, and it's very inspiring. He's a male breast cancer survivor with interest in advocacy. So maybe I think that this would be a nice way for Tom to engage you, especially in matters of advocacy. So that application that you had suggested, I would say that I would refer him to look at this, and then maybe he can start his advocacy journey from there. So thank you for the website. I've just seen it, so I'll forward that.
Thank you. I put the Male Breast Cancer Coalition.org website where people can go learn more about it. And if they want to share their story on the website, we would love to share their story and make them part of the family. And it's a fantastic start. Lameki and I talked about a group called Fresh Start, where they have cancer advocates who travel different parts of the world to help share information. That's a great opportunity also. I know they've had it to India and to Peru and to Africa. So that's another great organization to help share information.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for attending our Zoom meeting today. I just wanted to recognize the presence of the First Lady, Her Excellency Dorothy Nyong'o, who was with us here, and I think she left because she was committed. Seeing a number of friends. I'm seeing Mr. Okuto in charge of mental health at the county level. And also I'm seeing Dr. Juma, the professor at South Africa. Thank you so much, Dr. for attending. Elizabeth, thank you so much for attending the meeting. Magdalene, Christine, Dete, Beatrice, Jack, Sadie, Margaret, Otieno, Humphrey. Thank you so much for attending this Zoom meeting. Kevin Ogola, thank you so much. Nelly, thank you so much. Tomorrow at around 8 p.m., we are going to have a conversation on COVID-19, the impact of COVID-19. We have a professor from St. John's University in US, and we are going to have some panelists from the university around here in Kenya. And so we are also calling for your attendance and your input during that call, and you will share how COVID has impacted your life as a cancer survivor, as an advocate, and also as an individual. I want to say thank you so much, Michael, for taking your time, and also for engaging our members and our friends. I know that we are going to have more conversation and to see how we can get involved deeply into male advocacy. We are going to link you up with one of us, and please, I know that from there, you come out very strongly. Thank you so much, everybody, and may God bless you.
God bless. Thank you.
Thank you. Ivasha, thank you so much for moderating this. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Bye,
Ivasha.
everyone.
Thank you, Lameki.
Thank you. Welcome.
Bye.
I'll stay in a bit and just to wait for guys to go one by one.